Yeah, I won the season 1 World Championship. They had a Riders vs. Pros. Freak reminded me of that one.
Okay.
And then the official reminded me, apparently I won another April Fool's one, so.
Okay.
So what do you, you're like, are you 4 and 5 now?
I won 3 or
3.
Well, or if you count Doombots.
I was counting. Are we not ever? Let's make an official ruling.
Never counting Doombots.
Okay. NBC.
PvE. We don't really count
Okay.
those.
Doombots has been wiped from the slate. Get it out of there.
Yeah, it was pretty fun though to be on stage with Reggie and Steve and Dyrus and all of them. And my team, like we were talking about last episode of the dive, like everyone was super scared that we were gonna lose, right? And they're like, oh my god,
Except
all these
for
guys
me,
still playing,
the one
challengers and stuff.
shining light.
So we were like, all right, we need to smash these fools.
I mean, you drafted a pretty meta dumb team comp.
So we went in as hard as possible, and we're like, we got to steal away to 620, so they can't use that. I was like, okay, no problem. And Reggie's like, I'm gonna play Karma in mid lane, super safe. And we popped off, and we destroyed the G2 Pike. We were able to do it for all of
them and the balance team. You two together.
And that's the last time that Pike's gonna be played without the nerfs, because actually NA is gonna still be 9-12.
Right.
So if an NA team wants to play it, then
just get it's not going to be good in the future, guys. You're not good at it now. Just don't play any Pike.
Also, we can look forward to a great dive commercial made by the E4 lads. Yeah, because we won the bet. And you doubted me for betting on that.
I did.
It's a good thing that I bet on that and not on the actual matches.
Well, you would have been a crazy person to be like, no, give us the.
Well, yeah, that's the whole
You guys doubted me.
The whole reason that we bet on the show match though is because we knew that the actual matches were going to be real.
You have to bet on something, so at least bet on the thing you might win.
Yeah. I had faith. We crushed it. But to get into the actual matches, obviously, Team Liquid, most people are talking about it as shining light. Cloud9, I don't really want to get into talking about too much personally, because I think it's pretty useless to speculate on how they would have done had they not been sick. Even on day 1, apparently they were quite sick, and then Sneaky wasn't there for the rest of the games. So to me, that's not to really give them a pass. They did very poorly, but the thing about Flapper playing mid lane and stuff, I don't really think that they're worth discussing too much, but mostly I want to focus on.
I disagree. C9 would have crushed this event if they were there. Now that we get to say that, now that the Europeans have gone back across the pond, we can be like, yeah, we would have been fantastic if only C9 was feeling healthy.
It's kind of funny though, because
I don't believe it.
It highlights one of the things that a lot of people have been talking about since G2 flexes players around the map so much, and more of the European teams have started to follow in G2's footstep and try and do that. Like Origin had Patrick play mid lane. I mean, we were forced into a situation like that, so it's not like the team was prepared for it. But having players play other lanes looks really bad for our teams, and I can relate to that. Like, I can only play jungle. I'm a pretty bad Phil, I'm a full division lower or something as a Phil player.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what team would actually be the best flex team in terms of being able to move their players around in NA. I don't think the C9 even though they were the only one to attempt it at Rift Rivals.
I feel like we actually so we already have teams that are doing the solo lane flex stuff. That I think is easy to do.
That's easy.
But this is a discussion I was having with some of the European players and some of the NA players as well. Just the idea that it's what North American bot laner is going to be that guy who's flexing to mid or whatever, right? Piglet's gone, obviously. I know some people said Turtle, but I mean, Turtle, yes, he is a solo queue guy who has played those other roles and stuff, but I don't know that he would do that.
Turtle for sure could.
Yeah. I think it's less about Turtle in that instance and more the thing about flexing players is not only do you need to have someone who can go from bot to mid, you need someone who can then go into the bot lane, and I think that's where it would start being difficult for FlyQuest.
But we also, this discussion kind of started even a couple years ago, 2 years ago, we were talking about there was an interview, I forget which Korean professional player, but was talking about how one of the benefits of their solo queue is that so many of the pro players try super hard in other roles and have really good understandings of other roles and how they're going to play out. Whereas typically, when you have someone just focus on their one role and you kind of have an idea how jungle works because everyone, you know, interacts with the jungle. But it really does help so much if multiple players understand multiple roles, because you know when your top laner can come for a roam or things like that, or like how this match is supposed to play out and how you want to kind of play around it. And it really does seem like another area to highlight moving forward, especially for a lot of the NA teams, should be training maybe players to be more flexible.
I mean, even if you're not just moving players around, even how they move picks around in Europe is so much better. Where like, I don't know what part of the week you're supposed to take out and be like, this is where we try the really crazy stuff. Like the one they flexed Pike to the jungle, everyone was joking about how that was a troll game, but it actually got them so many favorable matchups for G2 when they put Pike on Yankos, and then they put the Olaf top into Camille, which was supposed to counterpick, but now it's getting counterpicked because you can play Pike jungle and Olaf.
Well, that's a funny one because I know there's a bunch of NA junglers that play a bunch of Pike, like Contracts, spammed jungle Pike and stuff like that. So that's actually one that we could do.
But it's like you have to actually tell your team like this is a strat that we're gonna do if we see the right situation. And I think like I would guess in North America there's way too much. Or not, I don't know about exactly way too much, but there's more focus on prepping for general situations. I mean, like these are our priority picks. This is the you know the order of champions in terms of what their power level is and how often we want them, this kind of thing, and less about like, well, if they get this matchup, I am absolutely not playing that matchup and we're flexing away from it, or I have this specific counter pick prepared for this one matchup. And I feel like if there's something we can do, if we can't flex players around quite as much, because that does feel really difficult, at least doing this kind of stuff.
And I mean, that's something where, you know, I've talked to players and coaches and things about scrim culture, and they feel that part of the issue with that sort of stuff, when I ask, well, why don't you guys practice some of this or some of that? Like, this is really good in solo queue, and this matchup, why is no one playing it? They're like, yeah, well, if you play something like one time, you get one game, and then it's just gonna be and it's like, if you're playing something that's not what they want practice for, what they think everyone should play, which is you have one game practice on something off meta, and then the rest of the day is scrims. And that to me like is something like I get it, because it's like, you know, if I'm TSM and Cloud9 is coming in and you're playing only against like, you know, Zoe jungle and Olaf mid and this and that and like all these other crazy things, then it's like, okay, well, is that really preparing you for your game against Liquid next week? Probably not. Some time invested into that sort of stuff, and an acceptance that like, hey, this will pay dividends on stage. You know, maybe not as consistently, but you know, in specific situations it can give you a massive advantage, or it can just like help to develop the region, help to develop your team, kind of look on a bigger picture.
Yeah, I think it's like being able to take a hit for that week to be like, oh, this one thing isn't that good, but more about a mentality shift in how you approach scrims beyond like, oh, we're just gonna pick the strongest stuff and get the best practice on. I mean, that's what a lot of the G2 and European coaches were talking about, was like when they scrim NA teams, they're just like turbo tryharding scrims and like always picking the same stuff. They'll run the same comp like 3 times in a row. Like, what the hell is this? Where's the experimentation? Where's like the learning in terms of champions coming from? Because it feels like we're maybe too focused on learning that. We're gonna all play the exact same champs every game so we can learn macro, and then someone throws a wrench in that plan and plays Pike jungle, and like, well, who cares what macro you learned, because they had a great pick. Yeah,
it seems really weird to hear that about in scrims they'll just ban out any unique thing that you see, because it seems like, yes, you won't get your standard practice that you're looking for, but what if the other team is onto something? You're their scrim partner, like you learn it at the same time, yes, from the other end, but it seems like that would also be beneficial. Like, okay, so this is your scrim match of the week. What about you benefiting from the unique pick or whatever that they're using?
I mean, I've definitely been in that situation when I was coaching, where like I remember we scrimmed TSM one time and they ran. Everyone knew Sivir was the strongest thing in the meta, and we were like just trying other stuff. We were trying Sivir counters, and like they would play Sivir every single game, and we would try all these different things. And then like eventually it got tilted because I'm sick of playing into Sivir. Yeah. And then you start banning. Like it's just one of those things where it's so hard to separate the emotion of like, oh yeah, we'll experiment, and then it gets clapped, and it's like, let's stop experimenting. Or you're playing against someone who's in that mentality, and then their experiment works, and you're like, well, we don't want to learn that right now. We want to learn what we want to learn. So get out of here with this. Yeah. So it's, I think, kind of that cultural difference where in Europe, when someone troll picks and is experimenting, it's probably even on the enemy team received with a more open mind as well as on their own team.
And I think it has to be something where you're on the same page for both sides, right? Like, I think, if you both go into it and both teams are like, hey, I think that, Alawi's going to be really good in 9-13, let's start practicing it, then maybe they're going to trade games, and that's okay. But, like, an example that I was given is Anivia, right? Or picks like that where people are like, well, only Froggen's ever going to play that. No one else is going to play that, so I don't want to play against Anivia. Okay, great, you played Anivia one game, now it's banned for the rest of the day, right? Like, that sort of thing was given as an example, and there's other examples with that where people feel like, no, this is like your pocket pick. This is not me preparing me for the other teams. This is preparing me only for you and this specific pick. But I do think that really limits them.
Yeah, I think the difference between for Europe is, like, I'm not quite sure it feels like pocket picks to me, Like, a lot of it is just general flexing of meta champions as well as, like, having multiple pocket picks. So it's not like, this is my Anivia. It's like, oh, this is my Pike and also my Olaf and my, like, something else. And you just eventually build up this pool where it's like, it's not a pocket pick. You just have a million picks that you want to play.
Yeah, for sure. But getting into kind of the overall picture for Rift Rivals. So Liquid went 3-1. I think it's safe to say that they were nice shirt, by the way, Mark. They were by far the best performing North American team. A lot of the European teams, some of the players and coaches and stuff, were pretty high on Liquid, thinking that they're a very good team and that they can certainly, compete. Liquid was able to show that. They are in sole ownership of first place back from week 5. They obviously showed to be the best team at Rift Rivals very clearly. They were not only were they 3-1, you can argue certainly the legitimacy of their first win against G2. A lot of people were saying, that's just pure troll game. I do agree. A lot of that was pretty troll. But even, like their most recent win against G2 in the Gauntlet was serious picks. They were extremely close to that as well. And they won that game, so I think they can be happy with their individual tournament. I think they were pretty close to 4-0, and certainly show why they are back-to-back champions, why they were finalists at MSI. They can compete with the European teams. And I think that is exciting, especially the game that they did actually beat G2. I think it was cool to see them playing Yasuo. It was cool to see them playing against a serious comp and actually being able to take down a team that a lot of people consider to be best in the world right now.
Yeah, especially that game to me was one of the brightest spots, I think, of the tournament for NA in general, because it was Team Liquid stepping a bit outside of the super normal stuff, right? Using the Cloud9 combination that they had used in LCS and as well Academy, and using it effectively. They did mess up the first 2v2 mid, but after that, we saw a lot of effective combinations on caps with the Gragas and Yasuo.
Yeah, I'm glad they kept going, like, not get dissuaded because you messed it up once. Like, that's the whole point of the comp, and if, you have to keep going there. But I liked what I saw at Liquid as well, like, not just skill-wise, but stylistically. I mean, we're talking so much about flex picks and experimenting, and Team Liquid's maybe the one team where I'm like, stay the hell away from all of that. Like, you are bog standard team, you're boring, and that's great. I love it. Like, please stay boring. Like, if you want to, like, learn more and branch out a little bit, that's fine, but, like, I don't want...
Mark's like, but be home by 8 o'clock. Yeah, don't go stand out.
You have an identity. You know who you are. Don't go to college and experiment, all right? You know what you are.
Oh, my God.
So, like, I think they're a team that... they like
similar to SKT or Fnatic.
Yeah, like they are who they are, and that's great, and that's who I want them to be. They can become faster, they can become a little more aggressive, they can learn new things like a Gragas Joshua, but I don't think that they're one of the teams that take a big step. Like, we're on the right track.
Yeah, I mean, Double doesn't need to be playing mid lane and stuff, right? Like, I think you can play standard, but again, as you say, you can take it's good to push the pace of the game, that you can't just sit back very clearly. If you sit back and you concede everything, you don't get the chance to come back to the game later against these top level teams that are playing pretty quickly and playing counter picks and playing, very, very kind of aggressive styles. But overall, certainly, I think TL should be pretty happy. It was nice to see that our best team is competitive against them, and I think that gives me hope for Team Liquid going into Worlds. Certainly that MSI wasn't just kind of like a one-off fluke, and I think that is very exciting.
Yeah. The rest of the tournament, I mean, and even some Team Liquid too, one of the most worrying things to me were just mechanical mistakes that a lot of our teams are making. And And that definitely got me worried. Because, yeah, okay, so Cloud9 was sick. TSM has had a kind of a rough start to summer where people thought they were going to pick up right after they left off in spring. But definitely has been rocky, and it looked like it was continuing in Rift Rivals.
Do you think mechanics were a bigger problem or macro?
So I think it was execution of plays and mechanics, because there were decent setups where there would just be a dive that went completely wrong, and there would you can have fine setups of trading objectives across the map or something like that, but everything looks so much worse and can look like bad macro afterwards if you mess up the play that you set up. So I think it was the baseline errors.
So I saw Crumbs tweet something similar, but I kind of had the feeling where I was most disappointed was our macro, because, and this is why I wish I had stats for it, but it was a couple of the games we were even in kills, but down 5K, and every time we would go for a play, it would be like, oh, 2 turrets are gone topside, and we were down pressure so consistently in this game. To me, that is, mechanics laning plays. When you go for plays, you naturally lose more. So I wasn't quite able to tell how much, or if that was anecdotal, where I was seeing it in some games and kind of forgetting the games where it's oh, we're 0-10 failing plays, so it's hard for me to know for sure, but I definitely was really disappointed. I think some of the TSM games and some of the C9 games where it's oh, we're trading kills evenly across the map, but we're just down so far. And a lot of the times it was because once we want to fight, it's we're at our inner turret.
I was under the impression that they were generally missed opportunities because of misplays.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a bit of column A, a bit of column B, right? There's,
pick a side.
There's so many of these games where it's so one-sided that it doesn't happen just because of one little misplay, and it doesn't happen just because you're messing up a little bit in macro, right? It's okay, well, you're probably losing all your lanes, and you're getting outplayed in the actual execution of the fights, and your macro probably isn't as good, right? TSM, to their credit, did have one really good game against Fnatic. This game, that is more that gave me something for them as far as coming out of day one, they were playing this late game stuff. It clearly wasn't working for that match. They come out with this Yumi, Elise, Aurelia, Lucian. It's all early mid game, get in your opponent's face. They actually went for the dive top that failed, but well, I mean, they pulled it off. But it was nice to see that it's okay, that didn't dissuade them. They continued pushing. They continued actually being aggressive and making plays. And the detractors from this game, against Dan, it was against the style. But this is the kind of style that I want to see TSM playing regardless. I think that this is the style that they can be extremely effective with. And they have such talented solo laners. You have, a KD who can be playing very aggressive. Sven can play some of these early game champions as well. So it feels to me like TSM should be kind of taking that as a lesson and looking to play more aggressive, not going back to the Azirs as much, not going back to this sort of kind of sit back and scale style, because it didn't even come close to working against.
Oh yeah, I think that was by far TSM's best game. They were running no tank, so they had to keep making aggressive plays. And while they did fail some, I think that is the important lesson, is that they kept on making them and kept on looking for them, because there is not another option, another way to win this game, and that was a hard comp to execute. So I thought that was definitely some good signs. And then if you put that one kind of side by side with the one after where Grig is on Sejuani, that was really rough, because they were
that was a lot of fails.
They were missing, he wouldn't buy sweeper, would
2v2s,
walk over wards, mixed executions on all these 2v2s in mid, all these missed ultimates. That definitely looked much worse. So I think this is still such a big issue for TSM, is figuring out their jungle situation, because it doesn't seem like they have gotten a lot closer to making up their mind.
Yeah.
They're still switching back and forth so much, and if you're doing that, you're cutting your practice time in the little pieces, because you have to split between both players, even if they're watching behind the other one. It's really not the same. So I really think they need to have moving forward very, because because we're heading towards the end of summer already.
And not just in the jungle, like we all loved their playstyle in spring, and then like why did you all stop playing Aurelia and Sylas when a couple patches ago when they weren't nerfed? And like everyone else in the league is playing those, you can double flex them. You were playing hyper like aggressive champions in the mid and top lane and could flex for matchups, and then Acadian was aggressive and would play to your top side of the map. Like where did that playstyle go in summer? I mean, I know part of it is you're swapping junglers, but like even the picks aren't the same, and it seems like they're trying to branch out in play style. And I just want them to look at Rift Rivals, look at what happened, look at what you were in spring, like try to be the best version of what you were starting to become in spring.
Yeah, I mean, very clearly, like, I had it's interesting because I think most analysts at least will agree that like this the late game style is not going to work. A lot of tweets from some fans that were saying I was not giving enough credit to TSM, at Rift Rivals. So like I did some digging into some of the stats to see like, okay, like is this actually true? Were some of the games closer than I thought? I mean, just to put it into context, like the difference between how they performed at LCS and how they performed at Rift Rivals like was so enormous. You know, the average goal difference at 25, for TSM in NA is positive 715. At Rift Rivals, their average goal differential is negative 5,403 at 25 minutes. So, like, that's the most extreme one. But even at 20, on average, down 4,734 gold. At 15, an average goal deficit of over 2,500, right? Like, this is clearly not working, and this is not the shit on TSM. This is because I think that they have the quality of players that they can actually succeed, but they clearly need to make a shift in play style. They took like 0 first dragons. They had 1 first turret. They had like 1 first blood, right? Like they weren't getting anything done, and that is really, really concerning for a team whose goals has always been international success.
And there are so few games at Rift Rivals that, of course, that is going to make their super bad ones are going to make the stats. So I would say like yes, the
4 and 5 were super bad.
Yeah, exactly. And then so you got to look at the one good game that we're talking about, the Elise game there with Acadian, and try and play off that or the strengths and build on the strengths, because the other ones were so bad that it's going to drag everything down.
Yeah, I mean, it's just very clear, like the TSM can have games like when you look back to the Azir game in LCS. I can't remember who they're playing right now. I want to say it was Echofox or something like that, but it was a 50-minute game. I could be having.
Yeah.
I could actually maybe check, or Kobe can bring it up. But anyway, and they can have those kind of games in North America, even if you're playing against the lower quality teams, and maybe you're not going to let off, and you're going to end up having this insane Azir game and closing it out. But this is very clearly shown that like what they're doing right now is not good enough for international play, right? And they have to actually change the way that they're playing the game if they want to succeed at Worlds, if they want to really have those goals. I believe that TSM, just based off pure talent, can do well in North America and very likely qualify for Worlds. But I don't believe that like if they maintain the certain play style that they're doing right now, that they will get it over. I don't believe that at all.
All right, 9-13 then. This patch is not going to be for the LCS this week, by the way. It's being postponed 1 week because of Rift Rivals, I think. But it is live for solo queue, and it is time for the solo queue hot takes. My first one, which I enjoyed, my couple games that I played while taking a break from TFT, were all
taking a break from TFT.
They were all 3 games jungle Sylas, because Sylas did get some buffs back in this patch, and the previous nerfs did not hit jungle Sylas as hard as they hit mid lane Sylas. He's actually so fun to do in the jungle.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the Q nerf from the previous patch was only on minions, or was it monsters and minions that did 70% reduce?
I have to go look at it, but I think it was just the minions.
Yeah.
But I have to go look at it. But because it felt fine, so I was maxing Q.
Right.
QW it should be the max. I know some people go for the E, but there's a much higher win rate on the Kingslayer, and the burst healing execution is amazing coming from a jungler. Yeah, the first clear, your cooldowns are pretty long, so the first clear is a little bit slower than you would think. Maybe you have to kite back a little bit on some of the camps, but after that, it's actually super powerful. So I would recommend for jungle experimenters, try your hand at some Sylas. As soon as you get your runic echoes, you basically feel like a solo laner. And I just like for 1v1s with other solo laners. And as long as you have a good ult to steal from someone, then you can come out ahead.
Did you try and 1v1 the Tentacle Queen Alawi?
I did not. I did not.
We're talking about.
I haven't seen an Alawi in months. Many months.
We made an account. Maybe it was last season when they redid like runes and all that stuff to give like I want to get the new player experience. And I was one-tricking Alawi, and so I'm very happy to see what I would consider pretty significant buffs to her.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think so.
There's some changes as well. Like there's, you know, it doesn't last as long like the Test of Spirit, but it also can't get broken off by like attacking Alawi, so it actually stays on a lot longer. And the big change is the attacks, instead of being once every 10 seconds, they're every 5, 4, and 3 seconds, scaling down with levels. So like that's literally double at level 1 the number of tentacle attacks that are going to be coming down the laning phase that you have to try and dodge and stuff.
Yeah,
so,
those are like the AI automated ones, though. Are those really that powerful?
They're pretty useful in a team fight.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, Alawi's actually, I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but I watched a lot of Quas in Academy, and he, Challenger, and he played a lot of Alawi, and it's actually pretty strong in team fight situations because you just sit there and you fish around objectives with your E, and if you ever land one, you slow them, they end up punching all around, the that you're hitting the phantom thing, and then that allows you to automatically objective, and now when they're trying to recall, they dodge the first one, and you had 8 seconds to recall. You could actually recall out pretty easily. It could keep spawning more, but like it wasn't that hard to avoid it. Now, like, you just like literally gonna have to run back to base if you get chunked out, and you can't try and hit her to drop it or anything like that. So I think it makes her a lot stronger in that regard, as well as minimum damage and all this stuff.
Yeah.
More tentacles from her R's, just like giant buffs all around to her. So she was already very powerful in melee matchups, and these are just better numbers, things all around.
I mean, I think Alawi has always had a really strong lane in certain melee matchups. I think where Alawi always struggles to me is like engaging. I think she's amazing counter engage. If it's a team that has to dive onto you, it's hard to have anything better than Alawi because they have to run through you and then you're ulting them all. That's where I think it's really strong. But it can be sometimes tough for her to kind of get into the back line, you know, and actually get that damage down. But Alawi definitely pretty interesting. One of the things that I had seen actually make some of the biggest difference though is, so they did a responsiveness pass. This isn't even in the buffs, but they actually changed how Jarvan's EQ works, how Kennan's E works, and Tryndamere E works, and those are now like much more responsive. The abilities apply more quickly, and that actually was like a huge win rate spike for a lot of those champions. In high elo, the flag and drag change alone made Jarvan go up over 4% win rate. So that to me is big. Oh god, Kennen and J4, which are already really popular and competitive, actually just got a lot better, and the like responsiveness type things are more significant buffs in high elo and at pro play, where people are actually able to make better use of that than it is at lower elo.
Aren't we talking at lower elos right now?
Yeah, we're supposed to be talking solo queue.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
you guys won't notice. You're too bad, viewers.
I mean, even for the all elo change, J4 still went up like 3%, right? So these are some really big buffs, and those are ones that I'm kind of looking at. The thing that I'm still worried about, even though I was leaning to 9-13, is Mordekaiser, because every time I play against Mordekaiser, I'm tilted.
What's wrong?
Ultimate lasts too long. You can't just
kill him. Come back. Play
There's no escaping him.
He's still really strong after the like hot fix or whatever worked him. I'm not exactly sure what the answer should be. Whenever I don't know what the answer is go on CC, just stun him up a lot. But yeah, the whole thing is just so hard to get around because he's gonna.
You can QSS it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to build a QSS. I would say that it's definitely worth it though, if you're playing against a Mordekaiser.
He's
to
mostly
build the
max
QSS,
damage, right? As well.
Yeah,
it's not that bad.
Like, but I mean the thing is, it depends what the rest of the team is, right? If there's other CC that's great to QSS, then that feels good. But like Mord doesn't have to ult the carry, right? This is one of the strongest things about it. Like when I've played Mord, you know, if you're having a bad game, you actually just start ulting the support every single fight and just killing them because it lasts so long. It's basically inescapable. Like you're going to kill one person on their team if it's not fight or whatever. Bro against the head.
The biggest thing for me actually is on the team playing with the Mordekaiser also. I need to like spam with pings so the rest of the team knows, because half of the time, or especially early on in the game, like the team would go in and Mordekaiser would ult someone, and then the team would still take the 4v4. Mordekaiser would win his 1v1, but come out to a losing team on the 4v4 on the outside and be like, guys, what happened over here? So I had to start like spamming them like, Mord's gonna win that, like spam ping them back off to just like wait around for him to win and come back out, and then we can have our 5v4.
That's funny.
Because everyone was like, let's go! Shark behind this Mordekaiser who's super fed. And then he's gone. He's gone also from the front line. The support is standing there like, wait a second.
You give him like one little last blue ult as he goes.
Yeah.
Like, there you go, have fun. You need that.
But yeah, so it definitely plays both ways. Especially, it's funny because I feel like support still doesn't kind of play around it from both edges.
Yeah, I mean, you control your teammates pretty hard. Solo queue. And there was like a super fed Hecarim, right? And he's diving back to like one-shot the AD, and his Mord, who's beating his ass off, just ults the AD to take him out of the fight as Hecarim's ulting in on him. And it was just like, oh no. So there's definitely some coordination that's pretty important. Because your teammates can't hit him either, right? If you're playing multiple dive comps, but I'm not sure if Mord is actually enabled now for this coming week, but I think we'll see Mord in Pro for sure. It just seems so strong in top lane right now. And, you know, I think that there's so many ways to be successful with it. You know, if you're super fed, you can just ult their carry and 1v1 them every team fight. If you're not, you can just take a key engage member out or whatever. But, like, it feels like your baseline level of effectiveness is so high. There's very few champions where I'm just absolutely inting and I still feel like, yep, I'm going to do a lot in every single team fight. And Mord is one of them, right? Like, I literally had a game where I was playing a blind pick and I played Mord versus Mord and I got blasted. I was like 0-8 and I still felt like I was doing great in every team fight. I'm killing someone, like, you know, I'm not saying I'm doing as much as the other Mord, but but like it's very rare that you have a champion that no matter how behind you are, it still feels really useful. Because even at the worst case scenario, in that game, I could ult their really fed AD, and if he doesn't have a QSS, I just run around in a circle and take him out of a team fight.
Well, it's like a lot of tanks. It's like why tanks are always good. It's like, oh, I might have gotten destroyed, but I threw my Sejuani ult, and I'm really useful. And so, like, it's cool. Well, I don't know about cool, but it's effective that he can be a bruiser in the top lane and mess people up in 1v1. If you fall behind, you're like, well, I'm still effective, kind of like a tank.
Yeah, and I mean, it feels even more extreme almost, because like tanks get really far behind. Yes, you still have your CC at least, but it feels like they can get popped. Whereas this is like you're isolated, you're choosing who you're 1v1ing, right? So you can kind of like, it's a choose your own adventure, right? You can like, am I really fed? Okay, I'll take the really fed guy. Am I weak as hell? All right, come on, support, let's 1v1.
Or do you just like the challenge, Dale?
Yeah, that's true too. You always 1v1 the top laner. You pick him every time, no matter what.
One of my other favorite parts is just all the nerfs to all the champions that we've been seeing permaban. So yeah, the LCS this week is not on 9/13, but the Sona, Karmi, Sejuani, Sivir.
Karmi, Sejuani.
The Karmi, Sejuani.
I'm trying to make like a group name for them.
Oh, okay.
There's too many of them to like mold them all into one. So I get a
What about Pike? You get Pike in there?
NA wasn't really part of our group, but like that poor group, like Sejuani was permanently in the jungle for like every single game, first pick and stuff like that. And then the support bans were Sona, Karma, and Lux. At least Sona and Karma, I felt like, got taken down a pretty decent notch with these nerfs. So I feel like they're well justified. And everyone's been complaining about Sivir for, you know, a month now as the premier AD carry. So I feel like that was a pretty good, you know, sweeping change.
Yeah. Plus, Essence Reaver also, I mean, so the cost got increased. It has a BF in it. I would say I generally consider a nerf to the item just because it's harder to build towards. I think one of the things that was so strong about Essence Reaver, you know, on the previous patch was just that you always have enough gold for some pieces, you know, of the Essence Reaver, right? It's like, even if I die early, I can get a couple long swords or something. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna have something. BF is always a little bit harder to get to. But it's still going to be an extremely powerful item when you complete it. The build path is just a little bit more difficult to pull off, so that, you know, alongside some other Sivir nerfs may make her early game a little bit more punishable, right? Which I think makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are relatively minor.
Yeah, I think they're well placed though.
Yeah, I
like
think
these ones needed a pass.
Yeah, I think I see them getting hit a little bit, but not completely gutted. Do we have anything else, or is it time for Jat Watch? What changes did he make in the patch? Udyr. I don't know if we want to talk about it.
Well, okay, so everyone thought Jat's gonna like super buff Phoenix, but looking into it, it actually he didn't buff Phoenix enough for it to like take over. He gave it like a little a baby buff there, which is nice, but
everything else got similar buffs as well.
Yeah. I mean, the last level thing is not going to be important really in 90% of games because Udyr's a super early game oriented champion, so you want to snowball your games. You usually want to have them over before you're level 18. In your last 20, they didn't mean anything before, now they can mean a tiny bit. He did take down the Tiger damage a little bit, so that's a little bit of it was a very small nerf to Tiger stance Udyr. But I know people who did not play him were always complaining about how much damage my Tiger did early.
I'm playing Udyr.
So
Let me have something.
I guess they're happy, yeah. But
I was the biggest piece. You remember double proc, and then you would get red pot.
Yeah.
They had red pot and top lane Udyr with Ignite. Oh, that felt so good.
well, they're even weaker now, Mark. There's no red pot, and they took down the total
Start with
attack
the Wrath
damage
pot.
ratio.
Yeah.
You're only by.
But I mean, yeah. If you want to touch on Udyr, actually, it did. The changes weren't that big, and they were net negative. So
Just wait.
so not
More coming up.
not a big deal. Yeah, I have to take another try at that one. Add another 20 damage on Phoenix Stance, then maybe it'll be good.
He's going to slowly creep in 20 damage, so we keep being like, that's probably not enough. That's probably not enough. And it's like rank 1, 100 damage. What the hell?
Yeah, I think that about does it for 913 though.
Yeah.
We'll be on LCS on that patch next week. This week though, got some good matchups. Team Liquid versus Cloud9. Hot up a Rift Rivals. Hopefully Cloud9 will have been able to rest up and get healthy and get some good practice in back with Sneaky, because that's a super exciting fight. Those are two top teams going head to head. Team Liquid, I think, deserve their #1 spot right now for Rift Rivals performance, and this is going to be first thing in line if they hold on.
They would really like to get a big win against a top team, right? They had their pretty close game against TSM that they lost, right? And especially coming off Rift Rivals, I think rebuilding some base really nice for them. I'm excited to see if Yasuo is going to be contested at all, because Yasuo has been pretty big for Cloud9, and the fact that Jensen brought it out makes me kind of excited that we may be seeing more Yasuo stuff in North America. And I always just think that's such a fun champion to watch in competitive play. So I'm hoping that more teams are going to be kind of, fighting them for that a little bit in pick ban, and that maybe we'll get to see that left open and kind of see people's answer to it as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to see C9 back, but they did lose to CLG as well before Rift Rivals. So, like, I think they're still going to be a good team come playoffs and that kind of stuff, but right now they could be struggling a little bit, especially if they didn't get very effective practice. So I'm a little worried that Team Liquid kind of just goes in there and lays the smackdown on them. I'm also interested in TSM versus 100 Thieves for two reasons. One, is 100 Thieves actually surging? Because they did pick up some wins and it's been nice, but like, is that momentum going to continue through that kind of break week where you have
they're surging. It could end, but 3 wins in a row.
It's 3 wins in a row, but
this team had lost like 12 games straight, Mark. 3 wins in a row is a surge.
I believe 14 or something. But yeah, like this, they're surging right now, but there was a break and they're going up against a strong opponent in TSM. And then I'm also
Yeah, why don't you and me go on tonight? Go on tonight. Walk surrender 시간 마이크를 갈아치는 터치하를 가르고 있는 covenそもそもなんで俺過去に on and on けな退屈な毎日とっても充実してるとは言えんがなこんなもん望んでた理想とは違うねもん All I know I love you babe and you keep always and more kept telling out I'll never forget you never babe damn we up from the monkey music not too late yes I say hey I need you hey babe better never talking cause I never get you gotta stay hey I need you hey babe I missed the should've known the time I met ya hey oh I'm gonna to the car hey yo come on you can do it hard hey oh I'm gonna to the car hey yo come on you can do it hard
as these boys are concerned, hamburgers and hot dogs are their ideas of freezing good.
I mean, like, I think it should be, but like either way, I think it should be 80. I don't see higher highs out of this as well, but like as we're talking about, like employees can pop off the schedule, and that's like not really there in the competitive sector. They pop off the schedule. Yeah, that's my opinion. But either way, just pick one and like the other guy.
That